Uh, Once again, greetings. And so here I would like to request all of you to generate your mind um, for the benefit of all sentient beings. Uh, for that, mm, to attain enlightenment. So, for this, now we are receiving Munro. So, with a pure motivation, please listen to this Munro teaching. Uh, so, um, today we will be continuing the Bodhicitta. And in the Monro, after the refuge and before the dissolving phase, we do generate the Bodhicitta, and through committing ourselves for the service of all sentient beings. In that way, we repeat the three verses of the Bodhicitta, and then so we have the following praises on self and others as being aware of the benefit. So with this, in general, Bodhicitta, the idea or the path is the very basic for all Mahayana Buddhism. Although in the beginning, the motivation should be built with the bodhicitta intention, but during the refuge, we especially, how to say, take or renew our bodhisattva vow, which has been generated already, and making more aware to ourselves in the part of the bodhisattva action. So with this, we will be continuing with the commentary. So, so we will go with the page number 65. The generation of the Bodhicitta connected with the going for refuge. Generally, if a person's mind has moved towards Dharma, whether or not the Dharma becomes the path depends on whether or not they have developed bodhicitta. So this is the perspective of the Dharma from the Mahayana view. So in the four teachings of Gambopa, or the four Dharma, and where the mind should be turned towards the Dharma, and the Dharma should be towards on the path of liberation. And the liberation should be illuminating the uh, ignorance. And by eliminating our, let's say, ignorance, achieving wisdom. So this is a way, or one could say the mind training way of instruction. So in here it mentioned that whether if a person is moved towards Dharma or not, mainly it depends on whether the mind is connected towards the Dharma, the Bodhicitta. Dharma is said to have become the path um, on yeah, whether you engage in the side of or great virtue. Dharma is said to have become the path if the virtue has become a means for attaining Buddha. When embraced by Bodhicitta, there is no need to mention virtue in ordinary activities and become means for attaining Buddhahood. It is says in the sutras, those who want to awaken to complete perfect Buddhahood should not train in many dharmas, train in one. What is that? The Bodhicitta. So, so in Mahayana, or in the higher vehicle of Buddhism, the Bodhicitta, the enlightened mind, for the benefit of all, is known to be virtue. And once a person is connected to that kind of intention, the idea of bodhicitta, and that means that there is a hope of liberation for everyone. In that way, the person who engages with the bodhicitta is a person, is a hope for everyone who wants to seek liberation. And as in the quote of the sutra, as one should train into Dharma, only one, which is the Bodhicitta. So, which means the Bodhicitta is not just an individual practice, but the Bodhicitta is the part of a lifestyle where it brings virtue to everyone. So in that way, it is very important for us to be aware of the bodhicitta. And now we will continue. There are two types of bodhicitta, relative and ultimate. These two are the root of the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha. So it is difficult to grasp the full extent of their expressions, but much explanation is not necessary here. in this context of resting meditation. If you wish to learn more, you should study the 6 Kadamba, treasures, and so forth. In brief, the essence of life. Bodhicitta is compassion. The essence of ultimate bodhicitta is the pranjana that realize the way of things are. Mm. So, in order to uh, understand uh, through, let's say, uh, the definition of what does it mean, uh, bodhicitta. Mm. Uh, Bodhicitta mm, is mainly a mind which is connected to the fact of awareness of all phenomena. And uh, when the mind connects towards the true nature of mind, and in a way, they become aware of the surrounding existence, where in the samsara, all sentient beings do go through struggle of confliction, of not uh, understanding the importance, where the distractions or the ignorance plays a big role, and that kind of attract our mind or kind of distracts our mind. So in that way, we are not being able to be aware of importance in a way to how to live our life. And so the enlightened part is mainly to the nature of the phenomenon, or one could say the true existence of everything. And citta is a connection where it connects uh, oneself to be liberated from the confliction of ignorance. So in that way, it makes a bond uh, through our relative life. For example, mm, so here we have 2 types of bodhicitta, a relative and ultimate. Uh, so it means in here it says that the ultimate bodhicitta or the relative bodhicitta, these two are the root of all the teaching of the Buddha. So, for example, the Buddha, he discovered um, the truth beyond the normal mind, and he not only being enlightened, but he kind of connected this enlightenedhood with the surrounding people with what? With compassion for the benefit to those who are lacking of this enlightenment. So the compassion makes or the compassion generates the mind to offer the enlightenment to other. So in that way, it becomes relative. So, so I will explain this when I go to continue with this. So in here, in here they described Bodhicitta in two ways, relative and ultimate. The relative is known to be compassion. And ultimate bodhicitta is known to be prajna, that realize the way how things are, which basically means wisdom. And so this mainly shows compassion and wisdom. So just having wisdom is a virtue, but that virtue is a small capacity of virtue, which only can be received by oneself. The compassion engaged is more the enlightenment shares to others. So, so in that way, it shows the life of, let's say, Mahayana, or the greater enlightened being. So their mind is ultimate in the state of the wisdom, but his activity of life is always available for those people who are lacking of it. And what does it makes that person to be more active is because by the compassion, when the person really achieves the enlightenment, and that person liberate himself from the suffering. And after seeing achieving the enlightenment, naturally, when the person looks at the surrounding, he feels more compassion because the enlightenment is lacking in the society, in the surrounding, in the samsara. So that there are countless of sentient beings, and for the person who's enlightened, for him, there is countless of activity to liberate them, which mainly comes from the compassion. And just generating bodhicitta for oneself, that doesn't become actual bodhicitta. The bodhicitta is a way of a life where there's need to be having compassion and enlightenment, or enlightened intention. So these two are important, because in individual, people might have strong intention for enlightenment but lacking of compassion for others. That is very kind of common. And whether not having compassion but having awareness or wisdom, is it enough? In the perspective of Mahayana, that is not the actual way of being such enlightened, compassionate being. So when a person uh, have self-interest, self uh, only seeking enlightenment for oneself, not for others, or not having the idea or any intention to, let's say, help other beings. Well, that person, when they get reach enlightenment, and then that person already reached the destination of one's aim, and there's no furthermore, uh, and there is no benefit for others. So in Mahayana, the aim is not for oneself, it is aim for others. So even though when you get enlightened, that won't be the last uh, destination. So that the enlightenment which you have gained becomes more beneficial when you start to share to other beings. So in a way, the life of enlightened being, let's say a bodhisattva, his life becomes meaningful not only for oneself, for others as well. So in that way, it becomes more virtue than ever. So we have to be aware with this. So in that way, relative, we can be understand that to drive or benefit for others, the key is to have the compassion. And just having compassion is not enough. The wisdom is need to be there. So, so there are two, relative and ultimate. So relative is mainly compassion, and ultimate is the wisdom, where the mind realizes the way things are. So we continue. These two arise in dependence on each other. Padamba Sankhi said, if compassion has not arisen, realization will not arise. You will only find fish in water, not in the dry land. So this is an example where so in okay. So in our Mahayana perspective, to understand, to achieve wisdom, compassion is needed. Without a compassion, the wisdom won't be perfect. This is the way in Mahayana. In every scripture, they mention this. Even in the life of Milarepa, he also mentioned about lacking of compassion won't make us to achieve the full realization. So with that, so what actually means realization? When if the realization mainly depends on compassion, so what kind of realization this is? So in here, when we talk about realization, we have to think about the Mahayana perspective of realization. It is said that that ones have compassion. The realization won't kind of stop, because, for example, realization is something that the object should be there to be realized. If there is nothing to be realized, then there won't be such thing or known to be, let's say, realized. For example, if there's nothing to be meditated, so how are you gonna do meditation if there's nothing to meditate? So in here, so the person, the enlightened being, needs to have compassion in order to gain realization, because it is known that so ones need to have the selfless wisdom. So when we talk about selflessness, has two kind of definitions, two type of perspective in Buddhist, we do believe. The term, when we talk about selfless, mainly we focus on I. We put the main, let's say, the idea of emptiness towards oneself, from main towards the existence of self. So we make that selflessness. But beside oneself, there's a thing of existence, which somehow we talk about, we use the term of self. Pena ngarantola ta sechi yore, ta de la gansa ge ta tan chu ge ta sine ni yung yore.
Sorry, Rinpoche, Cecily is translating, and I think she has difficulty to come out of the translating room. I will try something.
So normally when we talk about emptiness, we have two perspectives of emptiness. One is self-emptiness. One is known to be general emptiness. When we talk about general emptiness, it's more applies to every existence. When we say self-emptiness, it's mainly we focus emptiness to individual, mainly like self. So when Mahayana, when we practice selflessness, we do go through the stage or the order from self, like the main objective is the body at the very beginning, and we try to meditate our body to selflessness. And some people, that is enough. But to introduce, or let's say, to share the selflessness, emptiness, the realization of having the self-emptiness is not enough to share to others. You have to go more deeper beyond our self, how to say, the state of being selfless, more beyond, which means the all like phenomena, all existence. Because for self, if one to achieve like liberation, it's not like, let's say, the lower vehicle liberation. So the all meditating on every existence as selflessness is not necessary. One can put your physical form, yourself, as selfless. That is enough for self-liberation, because you don't need more further. In order to, how to say, benefit other or share the wisdom, one much need to go deeper stage of, let's say, on the realization. So which we call it the selflessness of other, which means the general or which what it means that the selfless all existence, all phenomena. So that is important. So that actually arises from compassion. So as the given example is, the fish can't be found in the dry land, it comes from the water. So in that way, the actual, how to say, ultimate realization comes from the fact of compassion. Goes based on the relative and the ultimate nature of things is unmistakenly realized. At that time, uncontrived compassion spontaneously wells up for the being who have not realized it, as does the capacity to devote your body, speech, and mind to the benefit of others. Those at first, when we talk about being embarrassed by bodhicitta or not, we are speaking about relative bodhicitta. So we must develop that first. Relative bodhicitta has two types, aspirational and engaged, both of which must be engendered through rituals. So from here, what we should have to understand that there are two bodhicitta, relative and ultimate. Relative is compassion for others, and ultimate is the selfless nature of mind, or the nature of selflessness. So for now, be aware of these two. One is relative and one is ultimate. So in relative, it mentioned there are two types. One is aspirations way, and one is inaction. So in here, these two are very important. And so we have this. The ultimate bodhicitta does not require to receive through, let's say, to ritual and so forth. Ultimate bodhicitta is just kind of a name which refers or points towards the fully enlightened mind. So be aware. The relative is mainly the existence, dependence, everything. So that bodhicitta do requires to emerge from rituals or aspiration and so forth. So that is required. So we continue. There are some superior individuals who develop it by sincerely reciting the words of the Bodhisattva vow 3 times in the presence of a statue of a Buddha. So yeah. So now here it shows for example, ultimate here we won't be discussing because for example during the Lojong mind training or 7 point of mind training or like this, basically they talk about the relative bodhicitta. Most of Kadamba practice focus on the relative, not very much on ultimate. So because the ultimate is more of selfless teaching, so in here, as a people, are very much used to engage with existence or dependence way of life. So in that way, in Kadamba tradition, the relative is more mentioned or the teaches about this. So yeah. So in order to receive the vow or or let's say to become a bodhisattva, we do believe that if a person really motivates to compassion for the others and engaging with wisdom, this is the person is known to be bodhisattva. The person actually not really required to become a bodhisattva. It's not like it's very necessary to go to ritual or like the ceremony like this to become a bodhisattva just by having a strong compassion for others and engaging towards enlightenment so that one wishes to share the enlightenment for all sentient beings to liberate from samsara. So with that kind of having attention, that person is known to be bodhisattva. That is general way. So for this, a person doesn't have to be call himself as a Buddhist, even like different religions, for example, Christian or Hindu or Muslims, like what kind of religion they are following. If the mind really connects towards enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, so what kind of name the person have, but in a way, that person is known to be a bodhisattva. So, so from here, now what we're going through this commentary is mainly like we are going through the tradition, for example, the people who's practicing and like we are all going outside or in, like outside or in as a Buddhist, right? So the actual essence of the Bodhi, being a Bodhisattva, doesn't have to be identified through schools or like through religion and so forth. It's more with the intention the motivation and like more with the mindset. So that kind of shows as being a bodhisattva. For example, Buddha didn't mention that he is Buddhist, and so the way of his life is a Buddhist, right? For example, like this, the way of the bodhisattva is the way of how to say enlightened being, a meaningful person who like enlightened being who benefits all sentient beings. So in that way, so it's more like the attention. So yeah, but for ordinary people to have a strong commitment, we might can go or might can go through some glimpse of like having compassion for others, and for that like being wishing for enlightenment, but we don't have strong kind of commitment. So in that way, just aspiration is not enough for a normal being. For individual or the superior person or being, so they can able to have such as the mindset of bodhisattva. But for individual, even though they might become a bodhisattva for a few minutes, but afterwards, like there is no commitment and there's no much of like ceremony, so that you forget about the intentions by distractions. So in that way, a ceremony is important and rituals are important. Commitment is important. So in that way, so in here it mentions, there are some superior individuals who develop it by sincerely reciting the words. Yeah, by reciting or without reciting, if the person might have that kind of thing, then that person becomes a bodhisattva, or he will have the vow. So ordinary beings need to receive the vow from a spiritual friend or a teacher who holds an unbroken lineage of the bodhisattva vow. So that is important, because as, let's say, a normal being who never have gone through the bodhisattva path and being not aware of what is the actual path of bodhisattva, so for that they require a such ideal a teacher who should be a bodhisattva. And by looking at that teacher, you can get inspiration and also learn the way of life of bodhisattva. So this is a way. So this is recommended for normal all beings. In either case, thenceforth, one must definitely confess violence and resolve never to commit them again. Best is to confess and resolve 6 times each day. Night in meddling way is to do so at the beginning and end of each of first session, or at the very last. One should recite it once each day and night. So, so of course, a person when, let's say, when we take Bodhisattva vow from a master who is a Bodhisattva, and then, so taking a vow, what does it mean? Having a commitment as for today onwards, I will take this Bodhisattva vow from you, a commitment that I will, from today onwards, my body, speech, and mind will be dedicated for all sentient beings. For that, I will try to do my best to engage with the liberation so that after getting liberated, I will share my liberation for all sentient beings. So I will liberate all sentient beings suffering. So like this kind of commitment or the vow of promise is very valuable. And so it is very virtue. But due to time to time as not being a normal, we go through some challenges in life where we go through anger, hatred, jealousy to individual people, so that the commitment becomes kind of ordinary or like less pure because one is not following the commitment, being compassionate. So in that way, so we have some rituals of the confession by reciting that, confessing oneself that I have done wrong thing and I did mistakes, so that by having a regret for what we have done mistake and committing again not to do so. So that kind of, it is important to remember this. So in here they say like 6 times each day. So normally when it says 6 times, like normally for a person who's dedicated their life to retreats, they have like a 6 sessions, 3 in the morning, 3 in like afternoon, so which till night, so 6. So each 6 part of the time, like remembering our own mistakes if we have done, and like confession and so forth like that. So it is important so that we can be more how to say trained. For example, there's also many actual life story where the Kadamba master in the earlier time, they check their activity by like counting the stones. They keep like black stones, a bunch of black stones and white stones, right and left. The moment when they able to like be aware of self being in the side of anger or negativity. So the Kadamba, the practitioner, put a black stone, and when the Kadamba Lama like have a very virtue attitude, then he puts the white stone. In the end of the day, he will see which is more. So in the very beginning, there's a lot of black stones, and the day, and when he like being more mindfulness and content, then they see less of black stones, more the white positive. So like that. So like being reminding. So that kind of is the one way of process. So we continue. For the so Bodhicitta, on the relative Bodhicitta, we have 2. aspirational and the actions. So we will be continuing. The aspiration bodhicitta is rapidly meditating. I will achieve omniscient Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. So that is the definition. I will achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Any related with this topic, when you like, if your mind is related with this definition, that means that that is bodhicitta of aspiration. So this is the ground of relative bodhicitta. So it's important to kind of remember this again and again. Now, this is analogous to wishing to go somewhere. Engage bodhicitta is to say to yourself, to accomplish that, and I will meditate on the oral instruction of Kumerkand Nam Mudra. So engage bodhicitta, let's say. So this is more action. Doesn't have to be only like reciting or something. It's more physical or in act. Mhm. And then engage in accomplishing the virtues act you have previously committed to. This is analogous to setting out on the road and going. So, so we have two aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta. So one is just aspiration, one is engage to act. So for example, Mundro, while you do meditating on the four common practice, these are known to be the engaged bodhicitta. And for example, refuge, prostration, whatever, and even like the act of receiving bodhisattva, wow, or any kind of action involves any kind of empowerment or like lung or transmission. Everything is includes in the engaged bodhicitta. So what we have to be aware that the act is known to be the engaged bodhicitta. So we continue. In this context, before the dissolution of the source of refuge, recite the prayer which begins until I reach enlightenment essence 3 times. Then think to yourself in the presence of that supreme field, just as the victors of the past and their children arose aspirational bodhicitta and then train in the precept of engaged bodhicitta. I do, for the sake of my parents or all sentient beings, arose bodhicitta and will train step by step in the training, the 6 transcendence, and then rejoice on your own behalf. Meditate that there meditate that other praise you, and make aspiration at the end, the source of refuge dissolve into you. So this is mainly instruction on the sadhana. So here we continue. Normally, when you renew the bodhisattva vow, imagine that that in the sky in front of you upon a lion throne. So when you complete with the refuge and prostration, And when it comes the time where you take the Bodhisattva vow, so it's not that you have to dissolve the refuge. Just leave the refuge tree how it is there, and one can take Bodhisattva vow from the refuge tree. I mean, for example, yes, during the refuge we gone through the 5 certainties. So the second is form, which is so in the form we have the Lama, Yidam, protector, and the 3 refuge. There's no problem if one take refuge from this. If one wants to take individually, like in its own way, then without like dissolving anything, just like one can also visualize Buddha Shakyamuni again appearing, like visualize that in front of you, like at how it's mentioned in this commentary, with the 16 hours and so forth, Sangha of Bodhisattva. So take the refuge. Or one can do, you can focus on the right branch of the refuge tree where there is the Bodhis, 3 times of Buddha, and focus there. But there is no like rules that you can't take Bodhisattva vow from the refuge lamas and yidams and so forth. So that is also, you can also do. So it's up to individual practitioner how they want to do. Listener and Pratyekaya Buddhas and take the vow at the end, rest without any reference point. Since all Dharma activity and practice can become precepts of Bodhicitta, their scope is extremely vast, but in brief, the precepts of aspirational Bodhicitta are that forsaking a sentient being and developing a contrary attitude destroy the vow at its root. Those once you have taken the Bodhisattva vow, it is important to abandon those two. The downfall of forsaken sentient beings is to keep up on and get angry at sentient beings, no matter how many or few things are, such as those for whom you harbor words, thinking, I won't have you, even if I get the chance, out of a motivation of hatred or in a way. So, so here, so so now in general, when we study the Bodhisattva vow, we go through 3 orders. And first is how to generate Bodhicitta. and how to keep up and how to develop. So, how to generate? So we have gone through already by rituals, the main list, the motivations which we have gone through, the aspiration motivation. The aspirational bodhicitta is the ground of relative. So that is the way how to generate the bodhicitta. So then, let's say when you already received or generated the bodhicitta, then what? Now we need to keep on with the commitment. So how to keep the commitment and the vow? So what is the instruction for this? So what we have to be aware that how the bodhisattva might how the vow can be broken. So when you receive the vow, now we have to learn that what makes the vow unpure or broken. So in here, so what we have to understand that in the very beginning, as the aspirational bodhicitta is, I will achieve liberation or Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sake of all sentient beings. So when a person kind of give up sentient beings, whether you are pointing towards individual or general, when a mind set kind of give up beings, the idea of others than self, then so then the vow or the commitment of the bodhicitta becomes unpure, because now one is not being what is committed and being, let's say, given up for others. So that would be the main root of, let's say, breaking the vow or let's say making the vow unpure. So be aware of this. And with that, giving up, on top, adding anger or hatred or actions. So that will not only just kind of destroy or cast the root of the vow, but it makes more complete of, let's say, cutting the root of the vow. So, so when that happens, we should be aware and immediately do the confession as how it's mentioned before in the earlier commentaries. So this is mainly this till here mainly talks about the aspirational bodhicitta. So now we come to the second point where it explains developing a contrary attitude to destroy the wow. So this is here it explains the downfall of forsaking sentient beings is to give up on and get angry at sentient beings, no matter how many of you there are, such as those for whom you harbor grace, thinking I won't help you even if I get none of this. Yeah, a contrary attitude is to think someone like me could never benefit myself or others. So it would be better to just be an ordinary worthy person. Or it is to think it is too hard to attain perfect Buddhahood, so it does not matter whether I use Bodhicitta or not. Or to think I will never be able to benefit other beings and develop the resolve of the listener and Bhartiyaka Buddhas focus on your own benefit. To think that the Bodhicitta doesn't really have much benefit and become relaxed about the vow and so forth. So this mainly describes the next one. So those are the so when there's the giving up motivation on top, or like the sense of one cannot able to help others, the idea of there is no much benefit as it's mentioned in the text, like this kind of idea actually makes the pure bodhicitta attitude unpure. So in that way, when this kind of idea starts to appear in our mind, we should be recognize that this are the idea that cuts our root vow of the bodhisattva. So in that way, the vow of the bodhisattva will broke. So in that way, we have to remember this and be aware of such ideas which is mentioned here. If more than one session passes without remedying this too with the antidotes, the bodhisattva vow is broken. So from the outset, apply mindfulness continually so that they do not occur should they arise accidentally. Quickly receive them with confession and resolve. So as it is mentioned, so we continue. In brief, in brief, never let the excellent attitude of wishing to bring sentient beings, including even malicious enemies and dons, to the level of Buddhahood, deter even the most serious transgression of our listeners, such as the defects, cannot destroy the bodhicitta. Therefore, engage in everything you can do to actually be of benefit to others. Even if you are unable to do so now, never be without the intent to help in the long term. So basically, here, So be here till here. What we should be aware that the danger of the vow is when there is the idea of such such of like the idea of giving up sentient beings. Those are the things that makes the vow broken. So we should be aware of this. Second part is the related way where seeing oneself being unworthy for the help of others and so forth. Like those are the things that we should be aware. And then to summarize this here, what we should understand that even though what kind of stages or challenges, phases we go through in life, we should never let our hope of giving up, we should not give up. It's the same like no matter what kind of phases, challenges we go through, whether it's good and bad, it's similar, like we are not abandoning our parents. We are not abandoning our, let's say, if there's a mother, like a child, for a baby, like for like a person, let's say parents. No matter what kind of things we go through, I will never abandon. I will keep them in my heart. And the moment I give up, it means that already, like, there's no more connections and there's no benefit for them at all. So in that way, try to keep that example in the daily basis. So no matter what kind of struggles, at least if you cannot able to help your parents or the ones, which is very important for now, but at least don't lose the hope. So that is something like the way how to keep alive the vow or the belief. So, for example, when we put to our parents and such things, it's very easy to relate to because those are something that we always connect in the daily basis. Let's say if you have a younger siblings or elder or any relative or senior ones, or something like, let's say, you relate with your own pets, which you like take care of. When you abandon, stop caring, that when you give up towards them, then how do we see ourselves being a bad person, right? Being selfless, being like not being responsible in a way, kind of, let's say, even though you have the capacity, but one see oneself as being, let's say, there's so much opportunity, but still we choose to give up. So that even though people have the rights to do whatever they want, but when we stop caring about our parents or whatever, somehow you already stopped them like the virtue from your side. So put that example and apply for the whole symptom slowly, slowly. So it might help. So let's apply to a family. Like in every worst case, I will not abandon, even though the idea comes, it's due to situation, but like at least like I will try my best. So in that way, try to put that kind of attention similar to all sentient beings. For all, like, even though physically in this life they are not parents, but as we bring belief in the past, in the future life, and at least understand that, like, they are also living beings, might have been our parents in our past life. So put it that as an example and try to, like, be more compassionate, and that kind of do help us. And then we continue, give up the 4 negative actions that will cause you to forget Bodhicitta in all future lifetimes and cultivate the 4 positive actions that will cause you to remember it. These are the first, intentionally lying to the guru or someone worthy of veneration in order to receive them. It does not matter whether they are mislead or not, or whether there was many of you. So it is wrong to tell even a small lies in just. So those are so we should be aware of this. So so the first is lying. Lying in the sense of fooling. And so especially not any here we're trying to lie to the person who actually shows the teachings, the truth. So if we, let's say, the person we actually should respect, instead of being respected, but being aligned to that person, is the first beginning, is the beginning of how to say, it's the beginning of let's say the negative things. It's kind of the gateway. When you start lying, and you will get a habit, and then the most important person, if you could able to lie, then the other things are very easy to lie. So in that way, the first thing is to the one who is very respected, we should not be lying. So instead, speaking truth. The second, though you should regret the wrongs you have done, causing someone else to regret even slightly virtuous action which do not warrant regret is a fault, whether or not other person regret them. Instead, as much as you can encourage others to engage in whatever virtuous activity of the 3 vehicles, especially those of the Mahayana, that they are able to inspire everyone to aspire to supreme enlightenment. So the 4 positive is very much clear here. So, for example, the most important part to be aware of the negative. So the second part is very much related with our life. Since the Bodhisattva life is more compassion, more generous. So for a beginner to train with the generous mind, to train with the compassion, it might kind of difficult at one point where, let's say, for example, if, let's say, the things which are wrong and we are doing the things which are wrong, and by knowing that this is wrong and not getting regret, doing the negative action and without having regret, first thing, those are the kind of the things leads to being careless of the motivation. So second is that when a person actually on the path, for example, let's say a generous mind, not only that in act, let's say the person being physically generous, where let's say the person does the offerings, and so in a way the act itself is beneficial for the other, where the other people go through benefit. So, but in a way, when you do generosity, let's say the generosity is the first of the 6 parameters, let's say. When you do like offerings, and then afterwards thinking that, oh, I might have not done this offering. I think this is being confused on the virtue act which have done, and not being rejoicing for oneself, instead regretting of one's virtue, or regretting to others' virtue. So like that kind of things, even though it is virtue, it benefits somehow with the misunderstanding of information, still try to see the virtue as non-virtue and looking at seeing as regretting things. So that kind of leads to us, even though the act, the intention in the beginning is virtue, but in the end, it doesn't include the bodhisattva way of our life. Instead, that becomes, it kind of leads towards, how to say, non-dharmic action. So in that way, we should be aware that when things like this happens, instead of doubting, instead of being like those, we should be aware that those are the obstacles. So instead of arising, just to abandon this kind of things, or try to like how to say, yes, ignore. Or whether, for example, there is a story. It was during one of the it was during the Kenze Wangpo time. When the Kenze Wangpo was in his monastery, his main seat, he was visited by his close meditative friend. Kenze Wangpo was sitting inside the monastery in his own seat, which is very big, and he has lots of how to say, religious items, very precious. And one day the Lama come to visit him, and when the Lama come to meet Khenze Wangpo in his room, and they serve tea, And the Lama, like suddenly from his pocket, he brought the cup. And they give the tea. And in the end, the monks that the Lama or a monk doesn't own a house, doesn't own like anything like a horse or so whatever. Just simple meditate. But he was like so pressuring the cup. So whenever he drank, he cleaned the cup and put it back and like take it out. And whenever they try to serve tea. And I think one time the cup kind of had a scratch. And the Lama was like, okay, no, so much worrying. And then the Khenzo Wampo laughed at him that I do own more than you, the monastery, the statues, antique, and so forth. But I don't have that much attachment of you towards the cup. So, so that kind of shows that whether how much you own, how much wealth, what kind of surroundings there is, doesn't mean you have attachment. Attachment is mainly when the mind only focused towards this and being very much kind of like, this is it. This is the important thing. So like, in that way, yeah, the regret, yes. So, so it's more about the intention. When you kind of put more intention, even though it might seem not important, but somehow this kind of small thing leads to a bigger end result. So in that way, it's very important to be aware when at the very beginning when things arise of such virtue might end up being regretful. So like those kind of things are very common to have in the very beginner practitioners, to be aware with this. And the third is anyone who has merely recited the words of raising Bodhicitta is included among the ranks of the Bodhisattvas. So it goes without saying that it is inappropriate to criticize them even the slightest bit. You must never disparage even ordinary beings, but should praise them instead. Since all sentient beings have Buddha nature, it is said that there are no different from the Buddhas in the being, worthy object for us to purify our negative action and gather the accumulation. So the third is criticism. Criticizing, especially towards a practitioner. So this is something that very much easy to appear in our life. Even though we are Buddhists, let's say, even though we claim ourselves a good meditator, but when it comes to something like dislike, whether like of course, in Buddhist community, we have like two like sanghas and like so forth, or like a person like this is very common in every religion. Like we criticizing other religion, which is not right religion. And like, let's say, put it as a Sangha. So the other Sangha is not good. This is this, and that is that. What we should be aware that just examine ourselves. If we can able to criticize a person who's actually engaged with spiritual stuff, imagine that how much it will be easier for us to criticize than one who's not religious. If we can able to criticize our own parents, or let's say we can, if we say like negative things, if we can able to do, then let's say who's not our parents, like those are strangers. For us, it will be much easier because you don't have any relations. Yeah. So similar like that. If one doesn't look the value of the spiritual, and if a person who engages towards a spiritual path, let's say a practitioner, which you don't like. So in a way, if a person really believes the spiritual path and really believes a person who is practicing the spiritual path, of course, it becomes very hard to a person to criticize because this is not a good thing, right? So in that way, so when the time or like idea comes where we come to a certain point that like we can able to criticize a, like the Lama, or let's say your spiritual friend, or let's say if you are not the same Sangha, let's say different Sangha, let's say a spiritual. So if one does this kind of actions, this shows one thing is that one being not much respectful towards Buddha Dharma. Because during the refuge, we need to have pure vision for the three jewels. We let's say, put all the followers of a Buddha as a Sangha. So in a way, we put this as the positive. So when we criticize to the one we try to respect, so in that way, indirectly, it leads ourselves to becoming less importance towards the spiritual, any kind of actions. So in that way, we should be very, be careful not to criticize, just put beside religious, but also just ordinary being, not to criticize. Instead, uh, but instead, it is good one can able to see other as giving a value, since as a Buddhist of we like Mahayana, Vajrayana, we do believe all sentient beings do have Buddha nature. So in the end, they have the result of enlightenment. So in that way, put it in that way as like one should praises other and have a strong positive view than the negative. So the fourth, it is wrong to deceive, cheat, or trick others, for even our own or a half cup with your body, speech, or mind in order to further your own aims, instead wishing to bring all sentient beings happiness and benefit in both this and their next lives. You must take others' benefit as your own responsibility. Even in conversation, you should speak honestly like parents and their children. So I think it's very much clear. We continue. In short, it comes down to this: give all profit and victory to others, and take all the loss and defeat for yourself. Your intention alone is primary in the Bodhisattva vow. So whatever your activity of body and speech, and entirely always stuff to the God, your mind, train as extensively as you can in the course of increasing bodhicitta. The two accumulation. So, so till here, I think, yeah, still furthermore. So this is all about the aspirational bodhicitta. And so so in here we have this the instruction from the mind training of Lojong, where this becomes the main practice of Lojong, which is part of Bodhisattva practice, mainly the Bodhicitta, where giving or being generous, like offering all your things to others, and taking all the loss and defect for oneself. So, so this is very important because in one way, this is the core teaching of the Lojong. One can say also the Kadamba practice. And so some might be familiar with like taking like the black kind of air as the suffering all sentient beings within yourself, and taking all the positivity as a white air to others. So this is the action of compassion. And so compassion is also an antidote for self-grasping. For example, when let's say, a female who is not a mother, being a daughter, firstly, they have strong kind of, even though the father, or male or female, like they have strong ego towards themselves. When they start to have children, they start to see more precious than themselves towards the children. In a way, you become more compassionate towards your own children. So you make oneself less important and the children as more important than you. So in a way, the love and compassion build so strong that in a certain point where you mainly live for them, not for them to you, for you living them. And all your dedication becomes for them. So in a way, like in a way, like not fully a selflessness, but in kind of selflessness, a woman becomes towards their own children, or father to their son, or in a way. So same like that. Now the idea is to change with the own like children. Now think about all sentient beings, like taking and like giving all this positive. So in a way, it kind of help us to decrease the self-grasping, the ego, and so forth. And we continue the sutra is recited by Sakaramati. This 10 tasks of a Bodhisattva. During on the foundation of faith, serve a spiritual friend with an intense diligence, seek the true Dharma everywhere. With intense and desire, never put aside striving at a virtue act. With a carefulness, do not waste your action. Guide being to spiritual maturity without attachment to your own virtue. Uphold the true Dharma without regret for the life or limit. Do not be satisfied with the merits you have accumulated. Studiously gather the accumulation of wisdom. Never be separated from the true meaning. Through the skill in means, seek whatever way is feasible. So I think this is very clear. So we continue engage in this ascendance. So we'll stop here. I will try to complete this Bodhicitta by tomorrow. So basically, the most important part is to generate the, of course, ultimate Bodhicitta and relative Bodhicitta. Both are important, but more specifically, we need to train more towards compassion. So in a way, in earlier they mentioned that the relative bodhicitta mainly depends on compassion. So compassion is something that we need to train, like most of the time. And what we should have to know that there is no danger to have loving kindness, compassion, and like those. There's no danger to have wisdom. There will be always danger to have negative. The positivity can be used in everywhere. Negative cannot.
Hello.
Hello.
It's okay, Roger. I'll switch off.
Okay. So try to have positive, and of course, for example, when a person has strong compassion, even though like suffering comes, the power of compassion or the loving kindness kind of like makes the anger or all the negative sides less important, less, let's say, appearing or whatever. For example, if a person is self-attached, how to say, very much clinging, then death becomes very fearful. Losing things becomes very fearful. If a person kind of, let's say, can able to be more compassionate, let's say, if a person asks you for a life with the power of compassion, that will not become very important. Instead, you will see the value in other through the compassion. So for love, kindness, then every struggle becomes less important, less fearful, less suffering. When we focus more on the self, then everything becomes more important, more struggling, more fearful. So in that way, the practice of compassion here, which is mainly the Raja Bodhicitta, are very much important for the all beginners, especially when we recite the Bodhisattva, the sadhana during the refuge. We should try to, how to say, sincerely, like taking this vow as actual compassion for the whole beings, sincerely. In that way, then the virtue is for guarantee, liberation is guaranteed. So in that way, these are some things that from when I look at it, this looks very important. So I hope when you do, it would be nice to engage with this kind of motivation, and not just do like reciting and just like just a normal way, but instead like with the sincerely intention and motivation, what kind of teaching you do becomes more reasonable and meaningful. So we stop here and we continue tomorrow.
Gong